people, dramatic history, and spectacular landscapes all come together to produce a country that will make you want to stay forever. Often known as the hermit state of Asia, it's situated among some of the most visited countries on the continent, yet its military dictatorship has left its people isolated and their voices muted. With the recent shift in government, the stage has been set for change and the country is opening up. This is Myanmar. Myanmar, previously known as Burma, is located on the Bay of Bengal in Southeast Asia, surrounded by Thailand, Northeast India, and China. My journey starts in Yangon, the gateway to Myanmar. Next, I fly north to the Shan State, visiting Inle Lake and the imperial town of Sepal. I then take the train 200 kilometers west to the ancient capital of Mandalay. I continue west into the Chin Hills to Mindat before heading south to the famous Buddhist temples in Bagan. I end my journey in the coastal town of Thandwe. Segregated land was home to numerous kingdoms. It's now as vast as Texas and 30% bigger than neighboring Thailand. It has a population of around 59 million people and even has its own language and ancient script. Myanmar is dynamic, it's aspirational, it has an incredibly complicated past, but it's changing dramatically right now. Its future's wide open. The best place to get a sense of all this is here in Yangon. Sorry. Yangon is the gateway to Myanmar, but was demoted from being capital in 2005. This appears to be routine in a country where there have been 21 different capital cities over the past 14 centuries. When the British colonized the country, they anglicized many key towns and cities. Amongst others, Yangon was named Rangoon. Even what to call the country remains confusing. The British called it Burma after the Bamar majority. Then in 1989, the military junta changed its name to the Union of Myanmar. The coup in 1962 saw the military taking control of the country. Over 20 years later, the elections were officially won by the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi. But the military prevented them from taking power. In a show of support, most of the international community refused to acknowledge the military ruling or the country's new name, until recently. This is incredible to see her image all around town. This is Aung San Suu Kyi. She was under house arrest here for 18 of the last 23 years. She was only released in 2010. After that, she's slowly being integrated into the government, and the country appears to be loosening its divisive grip and opening up to the rest of the world. Aung San Suu Kyi is still thought to call the country Burma in private. But what do people around here think? What should we call the country? Myanmar? Burma? What do you call it?
Definitely Myanmar.
Definitely. Why definitely?
Because that's their name. Everybody refers to Myanmar. They seem to connect better.
Myanmar, what it's known as. Myanmar is the geography. Burma is that part that Britain colonized. And the geography includes the Shan states, the Kachin, the Karen, the Chin, all of them. They together make Myanmar. Burma is just that part colonized, and it's not enough.
I use the names interchangeably, both Myanmar and Burma, depending on where we're at and maybe who we're speaking with.
The name Myanmar has been on record as a name of my country since the 13th century. The words Myanmar country are there, set in stone and written in archaic Burmese.
Ladies and gentlemen, we may have found the winner for most historically accurate answer to this question. Even if you adopt the newly appointed Myanmar, it's hard not to be impressed by the legacy left by the British. The buildings may have originally had international prestige and foreign residents, but as the wealth of the city declined, so too did the buildings. Many of them are now government offices or home and livelihood to the Burmese. The Strand Road runs parallel to the river and is very near the jetties. So back in the day, this was the premium address for leading merchants. Now all of those businesses are gone, but a few of the buildings remain. The Strand Hotel is one of them, and I'm lucky to join the ranks of George Orwell, Kipling, and a Rockefeller in staying there. There, it's beautiful, right? Now to cross the road. I got this. Built by the legendary Armenian Sarkis brothers in 1901, it was aimed at the world's rich arriving in the country by cruise ship and is still Myanmar's most famous hotel. It's easy to see why the Sarki brothers wanted this place. It's across the street from the river, so its location was fantastic, and the building itself is so grand. However, it was a guest house at the time, and the owner did not want to sell it. After his death, the Sarkis acquired it and turned it into the place to be in town. As traders and merchants, the Sarkis brothers recognized the impact the opening of the Suez Canal would have on trade in Asia. Having already opened a hotel in Penang, and then the famous Raffles in Singapore, Rangoon was now in their sights. What? This is my foyer? What? My desk, so I can pretend I was like George Orwell sitting here. Kipling, perhaps. I've only just arrived. I don't have enough friends. If I'm feeling lonely in this vast space, can I call you and we can just hang out together? That would be nice because I'm a little overwhelmed. Well, as beautiful as the place is now, the hotel definitely fell into decline for many years. Apparently, during World War II, the Japanese took over the hotel and actually stabled their horses at the bar. Can you believe that? There isn't just one colonial building with a story to tell. There are so many that it's hard to know where to start. To help me, I'm meeting founder of the Yangon Heritage Trust, Thant Mint U.
Around Christmas 1941, this building suffered a direct Japanese bomb hit, and it was never repaired. Most of the buildings you see here go back to the late 19th, early 20th century. I mean, Rangoon was built as a British city. It was built in British times. The population in the early 20th century was about 80% Indian. So in many ways, what you see here was not a Burmese landscape until very recently.
How do you feel about colonial days, that era that so affected your country?
Yeah, it's very mixed. This was the original plural society where you had all kinds of different people, Chinese, Indians, Europeans, Burmese, all mixed together. Many people still have a very bitter sort of sense of colonial history and what happened in those times. But I think it's important to think that these buildings are not just sort of colonial buildings. I mean, they were built in the colonial era, but that this whole area was really an important part of, or is an important part of Burmese history.
So how do you see this city developing?
I think the next few years is going to be really critical.
Right.
This was a city that stagnated for a long time under military rule, under very isolationist policies, under Western sanctions. Now all of those things we hope are fading away. And a lot of money is going to come into this economy. The economy is almost certainly going to grow. And the city could go in a number of different directions. It could go in the direction of many Asian cities. Or I think if we preserve a lot of this architecture, preserve some of the openness and green spaces, renovate these old buildings, it could become one of the nicest cities in all of Asia.
Oh, I hope so. I hope I come back in a few years and I feel this revitalization that you're talking about. One colonial building set to be redeveloped is the Secretariat, which takes up an entire city block. This was the headquarters for the colonial government and where national hero General Aung San was assassinated just months before independence. There are so many more buildings left from the colonial era than I actually imagined. This one was called the Pegu Club, and it was a British club, had 350 members, and it was extremely exclusive back in the day. And it certainly speaks to a bygone era. Constructed in 1882 and made predominantly of teak, the Pegu Club is one of the oldest British buildings still standing in Yangon. It was often referred to as the real seat of power in the country, and membership was strictly limited to foreigners. It was here that the Pegu Club cocktail was invented. It went on to become a worldwide phenomenon. Well, they may have made a mean cocktail, but that's not really the drink the Brits are most well known for. Tea, please. Did I communicate that well? It's my first day. Give me a break. It's all about tea, and colonial Burma was no exception. 60 years later, afternoon tea is still very popular, and in Yangon, tea shops are as common as the colonial-era buildings. Tea! Ooh, and sweet! Condensed milk, lots of sugar. Hot tea on a hot day, nothing better. Behind these gates is one of the most sacred places for Buddhists in Myanmar in the entire country. They all hope to visit here at least once in their lifetime, and I hear the best time of the day to see it is at dusk. Gotta remember, pagoda etiquette, shoes off, shoulders covered. Buddhism has existed in the country since the 6th century BC. Since then, millions of people have been seeking enlightenment, a state of nirvana, free from worldly suffering. It is so popular in Myanmar that there is a higher proportion of monks here than in any other Buddhist country, and Buddhists make up at least 80% of the Burmese population. Legend has it that over 2,500 years ago, two merchants from Myanmar traveled to India, where they met the Buddha himself. They gave him an offering of honey cakes. He gave them 8 strands of his hair. They returned to their country and presented it to the king, who had them enshrined here. Buddhists here believe that the greater the value of your offering, the more merit you will garner for the next life. In the 15th century, the king provided his own weight in gold leaf to be added to the stupa, starting the tradition of gilding this sacred monument. Everyone has their own personal Buddha to pay their respects to here. Around the golden stupa, there are 8 Buddhas with their respective animals, each referring to a day of the Buddhist week. Part of the custom here is that you make an offering at a place that it represents the day that you were born, and you pour 5 cups of water, marking the 5 precepts. The first one is an offering to Buddha. The second one is an offering for Dharma, which are Buddhist teachings. The third one is for Sangha, who are the monks. The fourth one is for teachers in your life. And the 5th one for your parents. This is for you, Mom and Dad. Yangon's riverfront is as important today as it was in the colonial era. Throughout the country, people still very much rely upon the river systems for transportation, for irrigation, even as a food source through fishing. At 1,350 miles long, the Irrawaddy River is Myanmar's longest and most important. Starting in the Himalayas, the Irrawaddy River bisects Myanmar as it travels south, flowing out into the Bay of Bengal via the Delta region, 1,000 square miles of waterways and wetlands. River life has always dominated the country. The first inhabitants settled along the Irrawaddy, and it's still the ancient artery by which the country lives. I'm taking a short 1-hour flight to another large body of water, Inle Lake. My local guide for the day, Ma-A, who's going to take me on a trip around the lake. But who's rocking the boat? Okay, I got this. Oh, fancy. Inle Lake is located in the Shan State, which takes up nearly a quarter of the country's landmass. Originally, there were 4 dominant ethnic groups in Myanmar: the Pyu, the Mon, the Bamar, and the Shan. The Bamar now dominate the center of the country, while the other ethnic groups are confined to the outskirts. There are now 135 ethnic groups here, and Inle Lake is one of the most accessible places to visit to get a sense of this diversity. The Shan make up the majority in this state, but the hills around the lake are home to at least 8 different ethnic groups. The lake is the territory of the Impha people who migrated from southern Myanmar in the 18th century. When they arrived, the surrounding land was already populated, so the only place left for them to inhabit was the lake itself. They adapted marvelously by building these still villages right along the shore and even creating floating vegetable gardens. Ingenious. The produce grown in the floating gardens is sold at the local market. Its location changes to accommodate all the surrounding villages and ethnic groups. The wonderful aroma of drying fish. This is a great market.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so busy, but everybody looks very different. So they've all come from different tribes?
Yes, in the tribe, and Pa'o tribe, and Shan tribe.
Okay. So she's wearing all black.
Yeah.
Where's she from?
Pa'o tribe.
Pa'o.
Yeah.
Pa'o.
Yeah.
Look at this boy.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
What is this they have on their faces?
This is the Myanmar Tanaka. Another name is the Myanmar Makeup. For beautiful and protection from the sunshine.
The local markets have started to draw on the tourists as well as the villagers. And even the most remote hill tribes from this area have realized that foreigners are interested in them as much as the landscape. The Padang people are one such group, originally fleeing to Thailand in 1988 to escape fighting between Burmese troops and ethnic minorities. They became a major tourist attraction. From beautiful weavings to their local dress, the Padang women are still firm favorites with foreigners. They start wearing their distinctive neck rings from the age of 9, starting out with 14 rings and working their way up to 24. They put this on over their head, yeah? And then they tighten it until the coils form. Oh, that's heavy.
It's made of copper.
And so they do one at the base and then like this?
Yes, yes.
Yes, she's laughing. Does it hurt?
First week is a little bit hard, and then so long they can easy, they are comfortable for them.
Do you sleep with your necklace? That was amazing. How do they feel about meeting the tourists?
Sometimes they are very happy, sometimes they are very sad, because some of the people are very beautiful and some of the people are like as an animal, so they are very sad.
Labeled by some as giraffe women and long neck and sit in shop entrances to draw in foreigners. But I actually get the impression that they are the ones having the last laugh out of the tourist trade. It's an easy way to make a living, and they certainly seem happy to show off their traditional culture. I'm traveling 300 miles north to a small rural town that was once one of the wealthiest and most powerful places in the Shan state, Sepal. Tribal rivalries have influenced Myanmar throughout history, and the best place in town to find out more is the Royal Palace, one of the few reminders of Sepal's imperial past. The Bamar majority has always seen the Shan as a threat, and the rivalry between them has had disastrous consequences for the Sepal royalty. I hear that the Shan Palace of Sepal is just down here. It looks kind of closed. Hello? The turning point came after independence, when the government sought to suppress ethnic minorities. The last Prince of Sepal was considered one of the most powerful and progressive Shan rulers, with his Austrian wife Inga and his Western ideas. He was arrested on the eve of the military coup in 1962 and later killed in prison. The Shan leaders have continued to resist Bamar domination, and the government once again had it in for the residents of this palace. Fern.
Yes?
Hello. Fern is a guardian of the palace with her husband Donald, a descendant of the Sepal prince, and she explains to me what happened.
And so you and Donald have been the caretaker for the palace?
Yes, ever since 1972 when we came to live here. From 62 up to 1995, no foreigners were allowed. From 1995 up to 2005, Donald and I, we were receiving travelers because they found out somehow in town that there's a palace. So they came to visit to see the palace, and Donald and I, we welcome travelers because we like to exchange knowledge here. We learn about your country, and travelers too, they learn about our country. So we've been receiving travelers every day, every evening for 10 years, no problem.
No problem.
No problem.
There was a period where it was closed
yes.
to the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
The military government didn't want any trouble from the Shan leaders because they were preparing for the 2010 election. So they wanted to keep the leaders quiet. They wanted all of them in prison. They accused Donald of giving information to travelers. He was given 13 years, but he served 4 years. I had to close the gate because they used tourism to arrest Donald.
Oh, okay.
And it was only in August I opened the gate to receive travelers.
How does it feel to be opening up your world and your gates and your history again?
The present government is promoting tourism. And Aung San Suu Kyi, too, is welcoming travelers. Now we are trying our best to preserve our Shan history.
It's time to leave Sepal, and the most fun way to travel is by train.
Well, we first took the train and it was just so hilarious. We went inside and the train started and we really thought like, is this normal? Is this normal? Because the train was like shaking and we were like this sitting on the seats, but it was quite normal because everyone else was sleeping and we were like, okay, I think this is it.
One ticket to Mandalay, please.
$2.
$2?
Yes.
Although it might be a slower method of transportation compared to cars and buses, traveling by train is a great way to meet people and enjoy the scenery. Nothing I can't handle. You gotta be careful of the bamboo, the watermelons, potatoes. Oh! I'm taking the train for 7 hours, heading west to Mandalay, stopping on the way at the British hill station of Pien U Luin. Were first introduced to Myanmar in 1877 when Lower Burma was a British colony. Craziest train! Connecting Myanmar's second biggest city, Mandalay, with the Burma Road leading into China, this rail link is one of the world's most used. In 2009, planning started on a link extending this line all the way into China. Whoa! Whoa! Are you hungry? Do you want some banana chips? Thank you very much. People are so friendly. It's really fun. A miserably long, delayed train ride. The Goktek Viaduct was built in 1901 by contractors from the Pennsylvania Steel Company. Oh, it's really scary to actually look down. That is insane. And it just looks like it hasn't been maintained that well. There's a whole lot of creaking going on. At 318 feet high and 2,257 feet across, it was the second highest railway bridge in the world and remains Myanmar's longest. After such a nerve-wracking experience, I definitely need a break from the train journey. But this is somewhat busier and more cosmopolitan than the quaint British village I was expecting.
Let's see the sights. I decided to get off the train before Mandalay because I wanted to see this town. It's called Hien Yuen. And this is where all of the British colonial administrators would come for their summer retreats. So I think there's a different style of architecture and definitely a different form of transportation. I'm in a stagecoach.
The British houses were built in the Tudor architectural style of the era. Their red brick, steeply pitched roofs, and exposed timbers gave them a wonderfully dramatic appearance.
Zuba! Thank you! Well, this has been a very bumpy day. Ugh. Now I'm on my way to Mandalay.
Mandalay is Myanmar's second largest city, and with easy access to China, it is often referred to as the Chinese city. It's a curious blend of ancient and modern, and I've arrived just in time to celebrate New Year's Eve Burmese style. Water may be a luxury in some parts of the world, but here in Myanmar, during New Year celebrations, it seems to exist purely to be thrown at others.
People keep throwing cups of water on everybody around, which symbolizes the washing away of all your bad deeds from last year, so you can start this year fresh. Whoa! It's so loud! You can't hear a thing! All because of that. That's where it is. Gold is a very important part of the culture here, and there are entire neighborhoods where they still beat the gold in the traditional manner. And I can hear it in here. Gold arrives here in a block that they call a vic, which is 2 kilograms. They break that down into a unit of measurement called a tickle, which is about 20 grams. They then put it through a machine that makes it thinner so that these guys can then pound it into these beautiful, thin pieces of gold that you see around town. May I see that, please? Do you want to show me? So this is a piece of bamboo, and then in between each one is a piece of gold. And they use the bamboo to keep each piece from sticking together as they spread it thinner and thinner. The entire process of pounding takes about 6.5 hours. Actually, I shouldn't say about because they are very precise about this. They have this incredible measuring system. There's a bowl in the middle with some bamboo, and as the bamboo fills up with water, the stick submerges, and then you know that they've been pounding this one particular section for 15 minutes, at which point they kind of stop, help rest a little bit, shift it around, and then keep pounding some more. Can I see how heavy that is? Can I see? Is it okay? Oh, wow. Are you kidding? That is really heavy.
Mandalay's most popular Buddhist relic is the 13-foot Mahamuni Buddha statue, so revered that people travel from all over the country to visit it.
By placing gold leaf onto the Buddha statues itself. And it's seen as a way to earn merit. Earning merit is a way to ensure that your next lifetime is better than this one.
So much gold has been placed on the statue over the years that it is now 25 centimeters thick. and the lower part of the statue looks rather less defined than it once did.
I can't actually go up and place gold leaf because that's reserved only for men, and the women are asked to stay here to pray.
Women who have already bought gold leaves are instead asked to put them in the donation box. Mandalay lost its imperial seat when it fell to the British in the Third Anglo-Burmese War in 1885. The golden era was over. The British exiled the king, King Thibaw, to India, where he died in 1916. His old palace, nearly 1.5 miles squared and surrounded by a moat, was a natural defensive location. The British stationed themselves there and renamed it Fort Dufferin. Another war ended British rule, but this time the reach and impact was far more devastating. World War II had arrived in Burma. By 1942, Japanese troops had marched the 400 miles here from the now occupied Rangoon. They finally captured Mandalay after burning much of the city. Once the Japanese had taken the fort from the British, they were determined to keep Mandalay at all cost. I'm meeting author and historian Ni Saw Min, who is an expert on this era. Most of Mandalay was bombed during the war, including all the original wooden buildings of this palace. But it wasn't just Mandalay's buildings being destroyed. International relations were at breaking point, too.
At the time, Burmese people hated the British government because they thought they made them slaves and took over their country. So they fought against British army. The Japanese make agreement. If Burmese people help them to occupy our country, they will give us our freedom. So they collaborated with Japanese, but they gave us fake independence. All the main points are controlled by Japanese.
So at that point, which master was worse, the British or the Japanese?
Yes. The Burmese people came to know the true features of fascism. The Japanese are tortured people, even the Buddhist monk. So Burmese people hate them. So they want to resist. And the Burmese people make alliance with British army. But Mandalay people are very kind and generous. When the Japanese lost the war in Imphal, many of the soldiers were caught the malaria and other diseases. When they crossed the Mandalay, Burmese people helped them, gave them food and clothing.
So even after all the Japanese had done in destroying their city and torturing them, the Burmese still took them in and took care of them?
Yes.
That's amazing.
They can even forgive their enemy.
It sounds quite Buddhist.
Yes, quite. Take care. Or some of the Japanese came back and made donation to Burmese people. They never forget the gratitude of our people.
Despite being occupied by so many foreign powers, Mandalay has reinvented itself as the cultural capital of Myanmar.
5, 6, 7, 8. Rock and roll! Puppets! Yes. Mandalay is known for preserving the art of puppetry. It's been in the country for at least 700 years. But it was really in the 1800s that this was the most popular form of entertainment. They were the great storytellers of their day.
Like the rest of Burmese culture, its puppet shows are steeped in Buddhist fables, legends, and folk tales. Traditionally, a marionette show would last all night, but these days the tourists just get the highlights. The shows were not only used to teach these stories, but the specific movements of these puppets have been imitated by people over the centuries and are now incorporated in traditional Burmese dance.
Hello, you must be Mama Nai, yes?
Hello. Good morning.
I'm meeting Mama Nai, who first started this theater as a way to interact with tourists and practice her English. She tells me how the puppets were used to communicate both the historical legends and the country's current affairs.
So these are your beautiful puppets.
Yes, the puppet troops always travel from town to town, and the puppeteers gather information, even the latest scandal.
Even the latest scandal.
Yes.
Wow.
So in
Did they
this
put
way-
that gossip into the show, and so
Yes.
that's how information spread, was through these
Yes.
puppets?
Marionettes became real men and women acting in real life dramas because each marionette was possessed by the spirits of its manipulator.
While she tells me this history, her puppet is still like talking to me as well. Everything she's saying, this puppet is acting.
Yeah.
Mama Nai has agreed to give me a quick lesson in making these amazing puppets come to life.
This handle must be on the index finger.
Okay.
It must be, no, it must be here.
No, you're laughing at me. This is my first day. Lady, give me a break.
You have to take this leg string to dance here, like this. 1, 2,
All right, we got this.
3. Yes. Your puppet doesn't look.
No, I'm very sorry, spirit of the puppet.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I got
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is incredible what you've done.
I'm too much sweating.
That's okay, me too. It's hard work being a puppet master.
I'm now heading into the Chin state, which borders India and Bangladesh, visiting the hilltop town of Mindat. The Chin state is one of the least developed areas of the country, and travel here was restricted until recently. I'm traveling the only way possible, by four-wheel drive. Even today, you still need a special permit from the government, and to get one, you need to travel with a registered guide. Mr. Saw is the go-to person for the Chin state and knows most people in the area, which is key to getting a real sense of the culture here. You can now visit almost all the Chin state, but Mindat is one of the more accessible towns, and that's saying something. The town is spread out across the side of a hill and is spectacular.
The Chin state has a population of 1.5 million people, but they're broken down into 52 different subgroups, 12 of whom you can get to know here in Mindat.
I'm meeting people from a couple of the more distinctive ones.
This is one of the lady.
Yes.
She is playing the flute.
Yeah.
But it's the last generation for their tribe.
How does she play?
Oh, by nose.
By her nose?
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Why not clap for yourself? How old was she when she started playing?
18.
And she was 18.
Yeah, 18.
And what Chin tribe is she?
It's Makan.
Makan.
It's the same as your name. Similar.
I can try? Yes?
Yeah.
I can't do it. Are you impressed? I think I have to leave it to the professionals. There are actually chronicles from China from the 8th century that tell of the Qiu people and especially note that their women had tattooed faces. One thing that is incredible about visiting this area is that aspects of their lives have not changed in centuries. What kind of wine is this?
It's made of millet.
Millet wine?
Oh,
Legend states that the women first started tattooing their faces to make themselves unattractive as protection from slavery and for identification if they were captured.
It's very sweet and very strong.
Their perception has changed significantly over the years.
This symbol, does this mean something? The shape?
Like the spot and the line here, it depends on how wishes.
Why did she do the tattoos, or why do they?
They thought that they are pretty face.
Yes. How old are they when they have the tattoo the first time?
At the age of 10 years.
At 10 years old, yes? Do they still give the tattoo to their children?
They doesn't want their future generation, no more tattoo on our face, no more heart.
It's another long four-wheel drive journey to reach my next destination. It looks like more fun on these bumpy roads. I'm heading to the site of the famous ancient civilization, Bagan.
Bagan is a top visitors destination in Myanmar. Now, to see the place, you can take an air-conditioned minibus, which is understandable because it can be over 100 degrees in the heat. Or, if you really want to get lost, you can take one of these. You are my guide, yes?
Yes, my name is Mimin.
Mimin, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Shall we? Hello.
Hello.
Mingalaba.
Mingalaba. The head.
From the 9th to 13th centuries AD, this was the capital of the Kingdom of Pagan. It was actually the first kingdom to unite the country. Buddhism first took hold in the 11th century, when the king was captivated by the Buddhist teachings brought over from Sri Lanka. He gave all his subjects an ultimatum: convert to Buddhism or leave the kingdom. Bagan is now home to the largest concentration of Buddhist temples in the world, despite the fact that in the 13th century, the Mongols, led by Kublai Khan, invaded and destroyed much of the surrounding area.
For many years, people lived here, just among these incredible pagodas and temples?
Yes, you are right. The olden day, all the people are living around this area.
How many temples are here, all in all?
2,200 something pagodas are still standing here.
Only 2,000, that's all. That's not many. That's a lot.
Yes. The olden day, almost over 4,000.
Were all of these built by the king?
Not only kings, some are made by the queens and their royal family. The other small pagodas and temples are made by normal people.
That was a thing of honor to build a temple?
Yes.
It's a pretty magical place to live.
Yeah, you can imagine, yes.
Ananda is an outstanding example of Bagan's architecture. Rich in decorative detail, this temple even has two original standing wooden images of Buddha from the 11th century.
That is incredible. Wow.
Very beautiful one.
Very beautiful. Everybody loves this one.
Sure.
Everybody's here to see.
That's what they keep.
This is extraordinary.
Visible from all over Bagan, Damayanji is the largest and one of the most famous temples here.
There was an earthquake in 1975. All the monument was collapsed. But this one, no collapsed. The king, he doesn't want any gap between the two bricks. And he made strong decision to his worker. If he sees some gap, he will cut all the fingers of the worker.
Are you serious?
Yes,
if he sees a gap,
serious, yes.
off with your fingers?
Yes. During the construction time, the king died. The worker, they didn't continue to complete the temple.
And nobody came in to finish it. So it's original as it was
Yes.
in the 12th century?
Yes, 12th century, yes. UNESCO protected this one because of the most important pagoda in Bagan.
Original or restored, these temples are an incredible legacy of the rise of Buddhism in Myanmar. Traveling around Myanmar has been intense. So I'm heading 600 miles south for some R&R at the coastal town of Thonway. With many of its ethnic groups migrating from northern India, the Rakhine state has its own cultural identity.
Aside from a brief period where the Rakhine fell under the dominance of Bagan, this was an autonomous region until independence. People here don't consider themselves Burmese.
But I'm here for Nepali Beach, and what better way to travel than by boat? This part of the coastline is set on the Bay of Bengal, and the entire area is dotted with small fishing villages. It is still developing, but with nearly 1,400 miles of coastline in this country, I'm sure the feeling of being in a secluded haven will be sustained for a while yet.
This is incredible! The thing about Myanmar having been so shut off for so long is that places like this are still relatively unspoiled. This is apparently the most developed part, and it still looks pristine to me. Myanmar, on the one hand, the country is opening up. On the other, there are still large areas that are restricted to foreigners and in serious conflict. But that said, there is a feeling here that things are changing for the better, and I certainly hope that that continues.